rain fell hard on the metal roofs of Nexus 7. It was a small colony on the edge of known space. The planet was cold and the sky was always gray. But many different species lived here together. They came from all corners of the galaxy to start new lives. In the center of the colony stood a tavern called the Rusted Anchor. It was old and the walls were made of ship parts. Inside, creatures of all kinds sat at wooden tables. Some had fur, some had scales, some had tentacles. They drank strange drinks and spoke in many languages. In the darkest corner of the tavern sat a human man. His name was Taiho. He was 43 years old and his hair was turning gray at the sides. His face had scars and his eyes looked tired. He wore an old military jacket that had seen better days. In front of him was a glass of cheap whiskey that he had not touched for an hour. Taiho had been a soldier once. He fought in the border wars for the Human Coalition. He was good at his job. Too good, some would say. But the war ended 5 years ago, and Taiho had no purpose anymore. He came to Nexus 7 to disappear. He wanted to forget his past and be forgotten by the galaxy. The door of the tavern burst open with a loud crash. Everyone turned to look. Standing in the doorway was a small figure. Rain dripped from her body and pooled on the floor. She was a dragon girl, no more than 8 years old in human years. Her scales were a beautiful shade of blue, like the deep ocean. Small horns grew from her head and her wings were pressed tight against her back. Her golden eyes were filled with tears. "Please," she cried out in broken common tongue. "Please, someone help me." The tavern fell silent. The creatures looked at each other, but no one moved. Dragon folk were rare on Nexus 7. They kept to themselves in the mountains north of the colony. They did not mix with other species often. Many feared them because of their fire and their claws. The little dragon girl ran from table to table. She pulled at the arms of strangers and begged them with her eyes. But everyone looked away. Some even pushed her back gently. "My mama," she sobbed. "Sir, Mama ist nicht nach Hause zurückgekehrt. Mama did not come home. 3 days now. Please, someone must help." An alien with 4 arms laughed nervously. "Little one, dragon business is dragon business. Your clan should handle this." "The clan will not help," the girl cried. "They say it is too dangerous. They say Mama is already dead. But I know she is not. I can feel it here." She put her small clawed hand over her heart. Still, no one moved. The galaxy was a cruel place. Everyone had their own problems. No one wanted to get involved in something that did not concern them. Taiho watched all of this from his corner. He had not moved. He had not spoken. But something inside him was stirring. Something he thought he had buried long ago. He looked at the little dragon girl, and he saw something familiar in her eyes. It was the same look he had seen in the eyes of children during the war. The look of someone who had lost everything but refused to give up hope. The girl made her way through the entire tavern. Everyone refused her. Finally, she stood alone in the middle of the room, her small body shaking with sobs. The other patrons went back to their drinks and their conversations. To them, she was already invisible. Then she saw Taiho. Their eyes met across the room. The dragon girl stopped crying for a moment. She tilted her head and looked at him with curiosity. Humans were rare on Nexus 7 too. She had never seen one up close before. Slowly, with shaking legs, she walked toward his table. Taiho wanted to look away. He wanted to pretend he did not see her. He had spent 5 years running from responsibility. He had promised himself he would never care about anything again. Caring only led to pain. But he could not look away. The girl stopped in front of his table. She was so small. The top of her head barely reached the edge of the table. She looked up at him with those golden eyes full of tears and hope. "Sir," she said softly, "will you help me find my mama?" Taiho was silent for a long moment. The whole tavern seemed to hold its breath. "What is your name, little one?" he finally asked. His voice was rough from not speaking for days. "Yuna," she replied. "My name is Yuna." "Yuna," Taiho repeated. He closed his eyes and sighed deeply. Every part of him screamed to say no, to send her away, to go back to his quiet life of nothing. But then he thought of his own daughter. She had died in the war. She was about Yuna's age when it happened. He could not save her. He could not save anyone back then. Maybe this time could be different. Tai-ho opened his eyes and stood up from his chair. He was tall for a human. His body was still strong, despite his years of drinking and self-neglect. He grabbed his old jacket and put it on properly. "Where was your mother last seen?" he asked. Yuna's eyes went wide. "You! You will help me? I asked you a question, little one." "The caves," Yuna said quickly, her voice filled with sudden hope. "The caves in the northern mountains. Mama went there to investigate something. She said creatures were disappearing. She wanted to find out why." Tai-ho nodded slowly. The northern mountains were dangerous. Even the toughest colonists avoided that area. There were stories of people going in and never coming out. "Do you know the way?" he asked. "Yes, I can fly ahead and show you." Tai-ho reached into his pocket and pulled out some coins. He dropped them on the table to pay for his drink. Then he looked down at Yuna. "Let us go then," he said. Yuna burst into tears again, but this time they were tears of joy. She wanted to hug him, but she was too shy. Instead, she bowed deeply in the manner of her people. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." As Tai-ho walked toward the door, the tavern fell silent again. Every eye watched him. A large alien with tusks stepped into his path. "Human," the alien said, "you are a fool. Whatever took the dragon elder will take you too. You have no scales, no claws, no fire. What can you possibly do?" Tai-ho looked at the alien with cold eyes. "I can try," he said simply. He walked past the alien and out into the rain. Yuna flew after him, her small wings beating fast to keep up with his long strides. The creatures in the tavern watched them go. Some shook their heads, some laughed. But deep inside, many of them felt something they had not felt in a long time. Shame. A little girl had asked for help, and only a human had answered. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Tai-ho pulled his collar up and looked at the mountains in the distance. They were dark and covered in clouds. Lightning flashed between the peaks. "How long to reach the caves?" he asked. 6 hours if we go fast," Yuna replied. She was hovering beside him, her wings keeping her at his eye level. "But sir, the path is very hard. Even my people find it difficult." "Then we should start now." They began walking toward the edge of the colony. Yuna could not stop looking at Tai-ho. She had heard stories about humans. Her mother told her they were strange creatures. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They could not breathe fire or fly or see in the dark. And yet somehow they had spread across the galaxy. Somehow, they had become one of the most powerful species in known space. Looking at this tired, scarred man walking through the rain, Yuna did not understand how that was possible. He seemed so fragile, so ordinary. But he was the only one who said yes. And that meant everything. The path to the northern mountains was worse than Tai-ho had expected. The rain had turned the ground into thick mud. Every step was a struggle. His boots sank deep and the cold water soaked through to his skin. But he did not complain. He just kept walking. Yuna flew above him, her wings beating steadily against the wind. She would go ahead to scout the path, then fly back to guide him. Her young eyes were sharp and she knew these lands well. Her mother had taught her every rock and every tree. "Sir, there is a river ahead," Yuna called down. "The bridge is broken. We must find another way." Tai-ho looked up at her through the rain. "How deep is the river?" "Very deep, and the current is strong. Even I cannot swim in it." They walked along the riverbank for an hour until they found a place where fallen trees had created a natural bridge. It was narrow and slippery. One wrong step would send Tai-ho into the freezing water below. Yuna watched nervously as the human began to cross. She could fly over easily, but he had to balance on the wet wood with nothing to hold on to. His arms were stretched out to his sides and he moved slowly, carefully, one step at a time. Halfway across, his foot slipped. "Sir!" Yuna screamed. But Tai-ho did not fall. His body twisted in the air and his hands shot out to grab a branch. He hung there for a moment, his feet dangling over the rushing water. Then, with a grunt of effort, he pulled himself back up onto the log. He continued across as if nothing had happened. When he reached the other side, Yuna landed beside him. Her eyes were wide with amazement. "How did you do that?" she asked. "You moved so fast, I thought you were going to die." Tai-ho wiped the water from his face. "Humans are good at not dying," he said. It is maybe our only talent. They continued up the mountain. The path grew steeper and the air grew thinner. Yuna noticed that Taiho was breathing harder now. His face was red with effort, but still he did not stop. Still he did not ask to rest. "Sir, we can take a break if you need," Yuna offered. "No time," Taiho replied between breaths. "Your mother has been missing for 3 days. Every hour matters." Yuna felt her heart swell with emotion. This human did not even know her mother. He had no reason to care, and yet he was pushing his body to its limit for a stranger. "Sir, why are you helping me?" she asked as they climbed. "In the tavern, no one else would. Why are you different?" Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Only the sound of his footsteps and his breathing filled the air. "I had a daughter once," he finally said. "Her name was Minji. She was about your age." "What happened to her?" "She died. In the war. I was not there to protect her." Yuna did not know what to say. She flew in silence beside him, feeling the weight of his words. "I am sorry," she whispered. "It was a long time ago," Taiho said, but his voice was heavy with pain that time had not healed. They reached the entrance to the caves as the sun began to set behind the mountains. The opening was large and dark. Cold air flowed out from inside like the breath of some sleeping giant. Strange symbols were carved into the rocks around the entrance. They were very old. "This is it," Yuna said. "Mama came here to investigate. She said she heard strange sounds coming from inside." "Machines," she thought. Taiho knelt down and examined the ground near the entrance. His trained eyes searched for clues. He found footprints in the mud, many footprints. Some were dragon feet, probably Yuna's mother. But there were others too. Boot prints, the kind made by military-grade equipment. "Someone else is here," Taiho said quietly. "Someone with advanced gear." "Who?" "I do not know yet, but we will find out." Taiho reached into his jacket and pulled out a small flashlight. It was old and dented, but it still worked. He clicked it on and pointed it into the cave. The light revealed a long tunnel that went deep into the mountain. "Stay close to me," he told Yuna, "and keep quiet. If there is danger inside, I need to hear it coming." They entered the cave together. The air was cold and damp. Water dripped from the ceiling and made echoing sounds in the darkness. Yuna's dragon eyes could see better in the dark than Taiho's human eyes, so she guided him around obstacles. As they went deeper, Taiho began to notice things. Metal pipes running along the walls, cables strung across the ceiling, lights that had been installed but were currently turned off. This was not a natural cave anymore. Someone had turned it into something else. "What is all this?" Yuna whispered. "A facility of some kind," Taiho replied, "hidden inside the mountain. Someone went through a lot of trouble to keep this secret." They came to a large chamber. Taiho turned off his flashlight and pressed his back against the wall. He signaled for Yuna to do the same. From the chamber came sounds. Voices, machines, activity. Carefully, Taiho peered around the corner. What he saw made his blood run cold. The chamber was enormous. It had been carved out of the rock and filled with equipment. There were cages along the walls. Dozens of cages. And inside those cages were creatures, dragons, aliens of various species, even a few humans. They were all chained and silent. Their eyes were empty with despair. In the center of the chamber, guards in black armor patrolled with weapons. Their uniforms had no markings, no flags, no identification. These were not soldiers of any official military. These were slavers. "Sir," Yuna gasped, "look, there." In one of the larger cages, a dragon lay on her side. Her scales were the same blue as Yuna's, but darker, more mature. Her wings were bound with metal restraints and her eyes were closed. "Mama!" Yuna cried out before she could stop herself. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Every guard in the room turned toward the sound. Taiho grabbed Yuna and pulled her back into the tunnel. "Run!" he hissed. But it was too late. They could hear shouts and footsteps coming toward them. The guards had heard them. The guards were coming. Taiho looked around desperately for an escape route. He saw a small crack in the wall, barely big enough for a person to fit through. "Through there," he said, pushing Yuna toward it. "Go." "But what about you?" "I will be right behind you." "Go." Yuna squeezed through the crack. It was tight, but she made it. Tai-ho followed, sucking in his stomach and scraping his skin against the rough stone. He could hear the guards getting closer. He made it through just as a light shone into the crack behind him. "I saw something," a guard shouted. "Over here!" Tai-ho and Yuna ran through a narrow passage. It twisted and turned through the rock. Tai-ho had no idea where it led, but it did not matter. They just needed to get away. Finally, the passage opened into a small cavern. There was no other exit. They were trapped. Tai-ho pressed his ear against the wall and listened. The sounds of pursuit were getting fainter. The guards had lost them. For now. He sat down heavily on the ground and tried to catch his breath. Yuna landed beside him, her small body trembling with fear and anger. "They have my mama," she said. "Those bad people have my mama." "I know," Tai-ho said. "We have to save her. We have to save all of them." Tai-ho looked at the little dragon girl. In the faint light, he could see tears running down her scaled face. He thought about what they had seen. Dozens of guards with weapons, advanced equipment, a hidden base inside a mountain, and on his side, one tired old soldier with no weapons and a child who could barely breathe fire yet. The smart thing would be to leave, to go back to the colony and report what they had found. Maybe the authorities would do something. Maybe not. But Tai-ho had seen the faces of those prisoners. He had seen the hopelessness in their eyes. He knew what slavers did to their captives. If they waited for help, it might be too late. "Yuna," he said slowly, "I need to ask you something important." "What is it?" "Can you be brave for me? Can you do exactly what I tell you, even if it seems scary?" Yuna wiped her tears and nodded. "Yes, sir, I can be brave. For Mama." Tai-ho allowed himself a small smile. "Good, because we are going to save your mother, tonight, and everyone else in those cages." "But how? There are so many guards, and you do not even have a weapon." Tai-ho's eyes scanned the cavern. He saw old mining equipment left behind long ago, chemicals in rusted containers, rocks and stones of various sizes. "I do not need a weapon," he said. "I just need to think." And Tai-ho began to plan. For the next 2 hours, Tai-ho worked in silence. His hands moved with purpose, searching through the abandoned mining supplies in the small cavern. Yuna watched him with confused eyes. She did not understand what he was doing. Tai-ho found old containers of mining chemicals. Most were useless, but some still had liquid inside. He smelled each one carefully, his nose wrinkling at the harsh odors. Then he began mixing them together in an empty metal can. "Sir, what are you making?" Yuna asked. "Something loud," Tai-ho replied without looking up. He tore strips of cloth from his jacket and twisted them into thin ropes. He packed some of the powder into smaller containers and attached the cloth ropes to them. His movements were precise, practiced, like he had done this 1,000 times before. "Were you a soldier?" Yuna asked. "Yes, a long time ago." "Is that where you learned to do this?" Tai-ho paused for a moment. Memories flashed through his mind. Memories of battles, of explosions, of friends dying beside him. He pushed them away and continued working. "In the war, I did not have fancy weapons or advanced technology," he said. "I learned to make do with what I could find. A soldier who cannot adapt is a dead soldier." When he was finished, he had 5 small bombs. They were rough and ugly, but they would work. He also had a bag of the chemical powder that would create thick smoke when lit. "Now," Tai-ho said, sitting back against the wall, "tell me everything you saw in that chamber. Every detail. Where were the guards standing? Where were the machines? Where was the entrance?" Yuna closed her eyes and tried to remember. Her mother had always told her that observation was important. Now she understood why. "There were 10 guards that I could see," she said. "Maybe more in other parts of the base. 6 were walking around the cages. 2 were standing by a big machine with lots of lights. 2 more were near the entrance we came from." "Good. What about other exits?" "I saw a large door on the far side. It had a wheel on it like a ship door. I think that is how they bring in supplies." "Excellent. What else?" Yuna thought hard. "There were lights on the ceiling, very bright, and the cages had electronic locks. I could see the red lights on them." Tai-ho nodded slowly. A plan was forming in his mind. It was dangerous. It was probably stupid, but it was the only chance they had. "Here is what we are going to do," he said. First, I need you to fly back to the main chamber through a different route. Can you find one? I think so. There are many small tunnels in these caves. I can fit through them. Good, I need you to get to the ceiling of the chamber. Stay hidden in the shadows. When I give the signal, I want you to breathe fire on the lights. Can you do that? Una hesitated. My fire is not very strong yet. I am still young. How strong? She held out her hands and produced a small flame. It was barely bigger than a candle. Tai-Ho studied the flame. It was weak, but it might be enough. The lights have glass covers. If you can heat them enough, they will break. We do not need your fire to destroy them. We just need it to crack the glass. I can try, Una said with determination. Good. Once the lights go out, I will create a distraction. The guards will be confused. In that moment, I will release the prisoners. Your mother included. How will you open the cages? They have electronic locks. Tai-Ho smiled grimly. Electronic locks need power. And power comes from somewhere. I saw cables running along the walls. If I can find the main power source and cut it, all the locks will fail. Una's eyes widened. That is very smart. That is the human way, Tai-Ho said. We cannot fly. We cannot breathe fire. We cannot see in the dark. So we must think. We must plan. We must find the weakness in every system. He stood up and stretched his tired muscles. His body ached from the long climb and the running, but he pushed the pain aside. There would be time to rest later, if they survived. One more thing, Tai-Ho said. Once the prisoners are free, there will be chaos. I need you to find your mother and lead everyone to the large door on the far side. Can you do that? Yes, but what about you? I will make sure the guards cannot follow. Una did not like the sound of that. Sir, you will come with us, right? You will not stay behind? Tai-Ho looked at her with gentle eyes. I will do my best, little one. But saving your mother is what matters. If something happens to me, you must not stop. You must keep going. Promise me. Tears filled Una's eyes again. I promise. But please do not die. Please. Tai-Ho knelt down so he was at her level. He put his rough hand on her small shoulder. I have survived many things, Una. I am very hard to kill. Now go. Find your position. Wait for my signal. Una took a deep breath and nodded. She was scared. More scared than she had ever been in her life. But she thought of her mother lying in that cage. She thought of all the other prisoners waiting to be sold like objects. Fear was not important. Only action was important. She squeezed through a crack in the wall and disappeared into the darkness. Tai-Ho was alone. He gathered his makeshift bombs and the bag of smoke powder. He checked each device one more time to make sure they would work. Then he began moving through the tunnels toward the main chamber. As he walked, he thought about his life, about all the battles he had fought, about all the friends he had lost, about his daughter Minji, whose face he could barely remember anymore. He had spent 5 years running from his past, 5 years drinking and hiding and waiting to die. But tonight, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Purpose. He reached a position near the main chamber. From here, he could see the power cables running along the wall. They all led to a single junction box mounted on the rock. That was his target. He could also see the guards. They were relaxed, bored even. They did not expect any trouble. Why would they? They were hidden inside a mountain. No one knew they were here. No one would come to stop them. Tai-Ho smiled. They were wrong. He looked up at the ceiling and searched for Una. For a moment, he could not see her. Then he spotted a small blue shape hiding in the shadows near the lights. She was in position. Tai-Ho raised his hand and made a fist. The signal. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a small stream of fire shot out from the ceiling and hit the first light. The glass cover cracked and sparked. Then another light. Then another. Una was moving fast, flying from light to light, hitting each one with her small flames. What the hell? A guard shouted. The chamber began to go dark as more lights failed. The guards scrambled, pointing their weapons at the ceiling, trying to see what was attacking them. But Una was too small and too fast. She darted through the shadows like a ghost. In the confusion, Tai-Ho moved. He ran to the junction box and pulled out his knife. With 3 quick cuts, he severed the main power cables. Sparks flew and the remaining lights died. The entire chamber was plunged into darkness. And then the screaming began. The electronic locks on the cages made clicking sounds as they failed. One by one, the doors swung open. The prisoners inside were confused at first. They did not understand what was happening. But then they heard a voice shouting in the darkness, "Get up! Get out! The doors are open! Run to the far exit!" It was Taiho moving through the chamber like a shadow. He grabbed prisoners by the arms and pushed them toward the large door. Some were too weak to walk. He carried them. The guards were firing their weapons blindly. Energy bolts shot through the darkness, hitting nothing but rock. They could not see. Their helmet visors were designed for bright environments. In the darkness, they were helpless, but humans could adapt. Taiho's eyes had adjusted to the dark. Not perfectly, but enough. He could see shapes, movement, and he knew where the guards were standing from the flashes of their weapons. He threw one of his bombs toward a group of guards. The explosion was not big, but it was loud. And in the enclosed space of the cave, it was deafening. The guards screamed and fell back, clutching their ears. Taiho threw another bomb, then another. Each explosion created more chaos, more confusion. The guards did not know if they were under attack by an army or a single person. They had no idea what was happening. In the chaos, Yuna found her mother. Bora was standing at the door of her cage, confused and weak. 3 days without food or water had taken their toll. But when she saw her daughter flying toward her, her eyes filled with tears. "Yuna, my little star! Mama, we have to go! Follow me!" Yuna grabbed her mother's claw and pulled her toward the exit. Other prisoners followed. Dragons and aliens and humans, all running together through the darkness toward freedom. Taiho saw them go. He smiled. Then a bolt of energy hit his shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. He fell to one knee, clutching the wound. It was bad. He could smell burned flesh, his own flesh. But he was not done yet. He pulled out his last bomb and his bag of smoke powder. With his good arm, he threw them both into the center of the chamber. The bomb exploded and ignited the powder. Thick white smoke filled the entire space. Now no one could see anything. Taiho forced himself to his feet and stumbled toward the exit. Every step was agony. Blood ran down his arm and dripped onto the floor. But he kept moving. He had promised Yuna he would try. He would not break that promise. The smoke was everywhere. It burned the eyes and filled the lungs. Guards stumbled through the white clouds, coughing and shouting orders that no one could hear. Their weapons were useless when they could not see their targets. Taiho moved through the chaos like a ghost. His shoulders screamed with pain, but he had learned long ago to push pain into a small box in his mind. He would deal with it later, if there was a later. He could hear the prisoners running ahead of him. Their footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Good. They were escaping. That was all that mattered. A guard emerged from the smoke directly in front of him. The guard was young, maybe 20 years old. His face was covered by a helmet, but his body language showed fear. He was not expecting to see anyone in front of him. He raised his weapon, but Taiho was faster. The human grabbed the weapon and twisted it out of the guard's hands. In the same motion, he brought his elbow up and struck the guard in the throat. The guard made a choking sound and fell to his knees. Taiho hit him once more on the back of the head and he collapsed unconscious. Taiho took the weapon. It was a standard energy rifle. He checked the power cell. 70% charge. Not much, but enough. He continued moving through the smoke. Another guard appeared. This one saw him coming and fired. Taiho dropped to the ground and rolled to the side. The energy bolt passed over his head and hit the wall behind him. Before the guard could fire again, Taiho raised his stolen rifle and shot twice. Both bolts hit the guard in the chest. He went down hard. Taiho did not feel guilt. These people were slavers. They took innocent beings and sold them like property. They deserved no mercy. The smoke was starting to clear. Taiho could see the large door on the far side of the chamber. It was open. The prisoners were pouring through it into the tunnels beyond. Yuna and her mother were among them, but not all the guards were disabled. Taiho could hear shouting behind him. They were regrouping. They would come after the prisoners soon. He needed to buy more time. Taiho found a position behind a large rock near the exit. From here, he could see the entire chamber. Any guard who tried to follow the prisoners would have to pass through his line of fire. The first group of guards came running out of the smoke. There were 4 of them. They saw the open door and knew the prisoners were escaping. They ran toward it with their weapons raised. Taiho fired. His first shot hit the lead guard in the leg. The guard screamed and fell. His companions scattered, taking cover behind machinery and crates. They returned fire, but their shots went wide. They could not see exactly where Taiho was hiding. "One shooter," someone yelled. "There is only one shooter." "Then kill him!" Two guards tried to rush his position from different angles. Taiho shot one in the shoulder and the other in the stomach. They both went down, but his power cell was getting low. Only 20% remained. He was running out of time. More guards were coming. Taiho could hear their boots on the stone floor. Too many for him to fight alone. He needed another plan. Then he saw it. One of the machines in the chamber. It was large and humming with energy. He did not know exactly what it did, but he recognized the warning symbols on its side. Explosive hazard. High voltage. If he could hit it just right. A guard appeared above him on a walkway. Taiho rolled to the side as energy bolts struck the ground where he had been. He came up firing, but his shots missed. The guard had good cover. More guards were closing in. Taiho was surrounded. This was it. The end. He thought of Yuna and her mother escaping through the tunnels. He thought of all the other prisoners who would live because of tonight. It was worth it. His life for dozens of others. That was a good trade. But then something happened that Taiho did not expect. A stream of fire shot through the air and hit the guard on the walkway. The guard screamed as his armor melted. He fell from the walkway and crashed to the ground below. Taiho looked up and saw Yuna hovering in the air near the ceiling. Her small face was determined. Her mouth was open and fire poured from it like a river. "I told you to go!" Taiho shouted. "I came back!" Yuna yelled. "You saved my mama! I will not leave you!" Behind her, Taiho saw a larger shape. It was Bora, Yuna's mother. The dragon elder was weak, but her eyes burned with fury. Her scales glowed with internal heat. "You helped my daughter," Bora said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You risked your life for us. Now let me show you what a dragon can do." She opened her mouth and released her fire. It was not like Yuna's small flames. Bora's fire was a torrent of blue and white heat that turned the air itself into plasma. The stream hit a group of guards and they simply vanished. Their armor melted. Their weapons exploded. In seconds, they were gone. The remaining guards fled. They ran screaming into the tunnels, abandoning their weapons and their base. They had signed up to capture and sell helpless prisoners. They had not signed up to fight a dragon elder and a human who refused to die. Bora flew down to where Taiho was lying against the rock. He was pale from blood loss. His shoulder wound was worse than he had realized, but he was smiling. "I told Yuna to leave," he said weakly. "My daughter does not follow orders very well," Bora replied. "She gets that from me." Yuna landed beside them and immediately started crying again. "Sir, you are hurt. There is so much blood." Taiho tried to wave his hand dismissively, but he could not lift it. "I have had worse," he said, but his voice was fading. Bora looked at the human with something like wonder. In her 300 years of life, she had met many species. She had seen warriors and cowards, heroes and villains, but she had never seen anything quite like this. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do this? You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Why risk everything?" Taiho's eyes found Yuna's face. The little dragon girl was clutching his hand with her small claws. Tears were falling from her golden eyes like rain. "Because she asked," Taiho said simply. "A child asked for help. That was enough." Bora felt something shift inside her heart. She had heard stories about humans. Everyone in the galaxy had. They said humans were weak, fragile, short-lived creatures with no special abilities. But they had conquered the stars. They had built an empire that rivaled the oldest civilizations. Now Bora understood why. It was not because of their strength or their technology. It was because of their spirit, their stubborn, beautiful, impossible spirit that refused to give up even when all hope was lost. "We need to move," Bora said. "This base will have reinforcements coming. And this human needs medical attention." She bent down and gently lifted Taiho onto her back. He was surprisingly light for his size. Or maybe she was just stronger than she felt. "Hold on to my scales," she told him. "I will carry you out." Taiho wanted to protest. He wanted to say he could walk on his own, but his body would not obey his commands anymore. so he just nodded and held on as best he could. Bora turned to Yuna. Lead the others to the exit. I will follow with the human. Yuna wiped her tears and nodded. Yes, Mama. She flew toward the large door where the other prisoners were waiting. Some were injured, some were weak, but all of them were alive. All of them were free. Bora followed with Taiho on her back. As they moved through the tunnels, she could feel his blood dripping onto her scales. His breathing was getting weaker. Stay awake, human, she commanded. You do not have permission to die. I told you, Taiho whispered. Hard to kill. Bora allowed herself a small smile. Good, then prove it. They emerged from the mountain into the cold night air. The stars were out, bright and beautiful against the black sky. The prisoners gathered in a clearing, breathing deep the fresh air of freedom. Taiho looked up at the stars. He had seen them from 1,000 different planets. He had fought under them and bled under them. But tonight, they seemed more beautiful than ever before. We made it, he said. Yes, Bora replied. Thanks to you. Yuna landed beside them and nuzzled her face against Taiho's hand. Thank you, sir. Thank you for saving my mama. Thank you for saving everyone. Taiho smiled. For the first time in 5 years, it was a real smile. Not the bitter smile of a man who had given up on life, but the warm smile of someone who had found something worth living for. You are welcome, little one, he said. You are welcome. 3 weeks passed after the night of the rescue. Taiho woke up in a bed made of soft materials he did not recognize. The ceiling above him was high and carved from stone. Strange crystals hung from it, glowing with gentle blue light. He tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in his shoulder reminded him of his injury. You should not move yet, said a familiar voice. He turned his head and saw Yuna sitting beside his bed. She was holding a bowl of something that smelled like flowers and honey. Her blue scales seemed brighter than before. Her eyes were full of joy. Where am I? Taiho asked. His throat was dry, and his voice came out rough. You are in our village, Yuna said. In the Dragon Mountains. Mama brought you here to heal. Our healers are very good. They said you almost died 3 times, but you kept coming back. Taiho allowed himself a small smile. I told you, hard to kill. Yuna laughed. It was a beautiful sound, like bells ringing in the wind. Yes, you did tell me, and you were right. She helped him drink some water. The cool liquid felt wonderful on his throat. Then she fed him spoonfuls of the flower-honey mixture. It tasted strange but good. He could feel strength returning to his body with each bite. Your mother, Taiho said between spoonfuls. Is she well? She is very well. She is waiting to see you. But the healers said you needed to rest first. How long have I been asleep? 19 days. Taiho blinked in surprise. 19 days, it felt like only a few hours. But he supposed nearly dying 3 times would do that to a person. The other prisoners, he said. What happened to them? Yuna's face became serious. Most of them are safe. We helped them return to their homes. The ones who had no home stayed with us. Mama says they are part of our clan now. Good, that is good. Sir, there is something else. Something important. Taiho looked at her with concern. What is it? People are talking about you, all across the colony, all across the sector. The story of what you did is spreading. They say a human went into a slaver base alone with no weapons. They say he freed dozens of prisoners. They say he fought against impossible odds and won. Taiho frowned. He did not want fame or attention. He just wanted to be left alone. I did not do it alone, he said. You helped. Your mother helped. I know, but the story has grown. People are calling you the human ghost, the one who walks into darkness. Taiho sighed and closed his eyes. He was too tired to argue about stories. Let people believe what they wanted. It did not matter. A few more days passed and Taiho grew stronger. The dragon healers were indeed very skilled. They used a combination of herbs and ancient magic that humans did not understand. His shoulder healed faster than any human doctor could have managed. When he was finally able to walk, Yuna led him through the dragon village. It was built into the side of a great mountain. Homes were carved into the rock, connected by bridges and walkways. Dragons flew between the levels, carrying goods and messages. It was beautiful in a way that took Taiho's breath away. This is amazing, he said. This is home, Yuna replied with pride. They came to a large platform overlooking a valley. Standing there was Bora. She looked much healthier than the last time Taiho had seen her. Her scales shone like polished gems and her wings were spread wide to catch the sun. When she saw Taiho, she bowed her great head. "Human," she said, "I am glad you survived." "Elder Bora," Taiho replied with a bow of his own, "I am grateful for your hospitality." Bora walked closer and looked at him with her ancient eyes. "I have lived for 300 years. I have met many beings from many worlds, but I have never met anyone quite like you." "I am nothing special," Taiho said. "Just a tired old soldier." "No, you are much more than that." Bora turned to look out over the valley. "Do you know what the other species say about humans?" "I can guess. They say you are weak, fragile, that you have no natural weapons or armor, that you live short lives and die easily. They wonder how such creatures could have conquered the stars." Taiho said nothing. He had heard these words many times before. "But now I understand," Bora continued. "I understand why humans are feared throughout the galaxy. It is not because of your weapons or your ships. It is because of your hearts." She turned back to face him. "You came to help my daughter when no one else would. You walked into danger with nothing but your bare hands. You fought against impossible odds because a child asked for help. That is why humans are great, Taiho. Not because you are strong, but because you refuse to be weak when it matters." Taiho felt something stir in his chest, something he had not felt in 5 years. Pride, not the pride of victories or achievements, but the simple pride of being who he was. "Thank you, Elder Bora," he said softly. "No, thank you." She spread her wings wide. "You have given our clan a debt we can never fully repay, but we will try. From this day forward, you are a friend of the Dragon Clan. Our home is your home. Our protection is your protection. Wherever you go in this galaxy, know that the dragons stand with you." Yuna ran to Taiho and wrapped her small arms around his waist. "Does this mean you will stay with us?" she asked hopefully. Taiho looked down at the little dragon girl. He thought about his old life, the drinking, the loneliness, the waiting to die. Then he looked at the beautiful village around him, at the dragons who had welcomed him, at the elder who offered him friendship. "For a while," he said. "I think I will stay for a while." Yuna cheered and jumped into the air, her wings carrying her in happy circles. In the weeks that followed, the story continued to spread. Travelers carried it from planet to planet. Traders told it in markets and taverns. News channels picked it up and broadcast it across the sector. The story grew with each telling. The human ghost, the one who walks into darkness, the soldier who saved a dragon clan with nothing but courage and determination. But the most important part of the story was not the fighting or the explosions. It was what happened in the Rusted Anchor Tavern on that rainy night. A little girl asked for help. Everyone refused. Everyone except one human. In the galaxy, there is an old saying that has existed for thousands of years since before humans even reached the stars. The saying goes, "Never corner a human. They will find a way out, and they will take you with them." Now there is a new saying. It spread from Nexus 7 to every corner of known space. It is spoken in taverns and trading posts, in royal courts and refugee camps, wherever beings gather to tell stories of courage and hope. When a dragon child cried for help, a human answered. And that, more than any weapon or technology, is why the galaxy learned to respect humanity. Because when the darkness comes and all seems lost, a human will stand up. A human will fight. Not because they are strong, not because they are fearless, but because it is the right thing to do. And that makes all the difference. Far away in the Dragon Mountains, Taiho sat on a ledge watching the sunset. Yuna was beside him, practicing her fire breath. It was getting stronger every day. Bora had promised that within a year, she would be able to light a whole forest. "Sir," Yuna said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. When you decided to help me that night, were you scared?" Taiho thought about the question for a long moment. He watched the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "Yes," he finally said, "I was very scared." "Then why did you come?" Taiho turned to look at her, the little dragon girl who had changed his life, who had given him a reason to live again. Because being scared is not a reason to do nothing, he said. Being scared just means you understand the danger. What matters is what you do, despite the fear. Yuna nodded slowly, thinking about his words. I want to be brave like you when I grow up, she said. Taiho put his hand on her small head. You already are, little one. You flew back to help me when you could have escaped. That was the bravest thing I have ever seen. Yuna smiled, her golden eyes shining with happiness. Together they watched the stars come out one by one. A human and a dragon. An unlikely friendship forged in fire and darkness. But perhaps not so unlikely after all. Because in the end, courage has no species. And kindness knows no boundaries. And sometimes, just sometimes, one person can make all the difference in the galaxy.